This is the meeting of no, not June 17th, July 1st today. I believe I was at the June 17th meeting, though. Okay, we'll note that all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Jackson, who is absent. First item of business is the order of business. Are there any changes to the order of business? There are no changes. Would there be a motion? Yes.
There is one change to the order of business.
Okay.
Apologize. The 5:15 timetable agenda, there's a Renaissance Zone application, and that is premature at this point until the rezoning ahead of that goes through. So
Say that again.
We'll take the Renaissance Zone application off the agenda.
Okay, the number 2 item there.
Yes.
All right. Any other changes, Mr. Colling? Any other changes by anyone else? Okay, would there be a motion to approve the order of business as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion by Mrs. Stuckart, second by Mr. Steiner. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion carries. So we'll move to the non-timetable agenda, and the first item there is item A, the sales tax bonding ordinance. This would be the second reading. Mr. Colling, anything you'd like to say by introduction?
Mr. President, Commissioners, this ordinance, as you're aware, provides for the city's ability to pledge the receipts from the 30% share of the 1% sales tax to the repayment of bonds. It is intended that the bonds will be issued for expansion of the West River Community Center campus. And this ordinance was requested by the city's bond council in order to facilitate that process. This ordinance is unchanged from first reading, and city staff recommend approval. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. This is ordinance 1513. If there's anyone from the public that would like to comment regarding this ordinance, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, and we'd hear your comments. There's no one from the public that would like to comment. Would there be any comments or questions by commissioners or other city staff? Hearing none, is there a motion regarding the second reading and final passage?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
With a motion to approve and the second, any discussion? Hearing none, then we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckart?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Item B is an issue regarding administrative staff. Mr. Kessel, is this your item?
It is, President Johnson. Thank you. As we discussed at the last commission meeting, the intent of this staff person would be to take a part-time, non-benefited individual who's currently helping out in community development and engineering and make them full-time in the engineering department. They would also assist in public works or act as public works administrative staff as well. This would then allow for community development to maintain 2 staff as they have today, and then engineering and public works would have 1 to share. That would mean about an additional $15,000 to $20,000 in salary this year. That's not budgeted, and about $30,000 next year. That's currently not budgeted. We believe that the current budget, because of positions we've gone unable to fill, will have no problem covering that cost this year. And then, of course, next year we can make allowances in the 2014 budget. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer those.
Any questions for the city administrator? So if you favor this, I think the motion would be to approve funding for, or increase funding from a part-time administrative person to a full-time administrative person for this year.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next
President.
item,
Mr. President,
yes.
apologize, Ms. Benstock informs me that we forgot to take a vote on the consent agenda. And we'll
I'm
look
sure
through
we
those
did
items.
that in my mind. You're right, we went right by that. Okay, we'll move back to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss? Hearing none, would there be a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Is there anything else I've missed? I'm in a hurry. I get things to leave tonight, but, okay. Item C, Vanguard Archive Contract. And Joe, you're going to present that?
Mr. President, Commissioners, yes, I am. Joe Hirschfeld, Assessor for Dickinson. Annually, we have Vanguard do our archiving and end-of-year business for us. It is a budgeted item of $2,200. However, this year when I was asking them to perform this for us, they offered us an option of a 2-year or a 6-year contract. The 2-year contract would come at a 10% discount, the 6-year contract at a 20% discount. The really nice feature about this is it would lock us in at our current parcel count of 9,957, which keeps us under the 10,000 parcel threshold, which would, once we breach that, would increase the cost up to $3,200 instead of $2,200. I'm just asking you to allow me to go into a 6-year contract then and save the city a little money. That cost is payable annually and not all up front. So, I mean, there really is no downside to this that I can see.
You've heard Mr. Hirschfeld's report, request, and recommendation. Any comments or questions by commissioners?
By locking us into the under 10,000 mark, even though we will pass that during that 6-year contract, the fee remains constant throughout, no matter what.
That is correct. We'll essentially be considered to have fewer than 10,000 parcels for the term of that 6 years.
Okay.
Anybody object to this? Not, would there be a motion to authorize Mr. Hirschfeld to enter into a 6-year contract with Vanguard?
I'd make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? We'll vote then. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I do.
Okay, continue.
Following the Board of Equalization meeting, or during that time, we'll attribute to Commissioner Jackson. I believe it was he that asked, and of course there's consent, I believe, amongst the rest of you, to look at a residential revaluation. Excuse me. As we are doing a commercial one following later this year into next year. I did get a quote back for that. It would culminate in 2019, so they're quite a ways out. And the cost on that is now at $145 per improved parcel, which at our current parcel count would be just above $900,000. So we're seeing a little bit of an increase since the bid that I got 2 years ago, most of that due to the increase in housing. And then they're cheapers out at 2019. I mean, we're getting to be quite a ways out. So looking for a little guidance to that, not looking for action tonight, just information for the commission to chew on for a bit and decide what path we want to go on.
Well, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
$905,000 just to, in a sense, verify or correct the numbers that we have. I guess, I'm not sure, when I read this earlier today, I wasn't sure that that the benefits that we'd get from this would outweigh the costs of doing it. So that would be my concern.
And I haven't had an opportunity yet to do a feasibility study on this. Was it last year or the year before when we had the other quote done? In my opinion, I thought it was about a wash for what the cost would be to have Vanguard come in or an outside company versus what additional staff and salaries would be in regards to any new construction additions, decks and that sort that would be picked up. I'm not quite sure that at this current $905,000 that's still feasible, but yeah, it is an awful.
We get a lot of residential sales, so I think you get a good chance of, to look at several comparative sales and setting the, the values. Now, you may not go right down to every individual property and study every individual property in doing that, but I think in general you have most of these properties, the vast majority of them, close to the market. I can understand with our commercial properties, industrial properties, where there weren't as many sales and there aren't as many parcels. We bring Vanguard in occasionally to kind of right the ship there. But I would have real concerns about what we'd be paying here and the benefit we'd actually get.
I agree with you, Mayor Johnson.
So we'd spend almost $1 million, send out letters to 80% of the people that your property value went up, and so we get the double whammy of unimpressed.
Well, supposedly what you'd get is on a per parcel or per property basis, you'd get a more accurate valuation than what.
Sure.
But for roughly $1 million, we could employ quite a few more appraisers for a while to do this ourselves too.
We could, yes.
And the problem I see also is with the interest rates, they went up 1% in 1 week. We don't know, are they going to go back down or are they going to keep climbing? That makes a big difference on the pricing of our properties then too. The higher the interest rate, the lower the property value.
That is correct. The purpose of the study would be to make sure that the properties were all, their characteristics were to current status and not prior inspection date. And it would be nice to have it done, but like I say, at what cost also? I mean, we have to be responsible.
Well, we levy, I think, less than $3.5 million a year of property taxes to our general fund.
Mm-hmm.
To go spend nearly $1 million to, and not all that's on residential property, to go verify that we've got a residential property, to verify the accuracy of it at that cost just doesn't seem reasonable. I mean, if it was something less than $100,000, it might sound reasonable, but this doesn't to me. So you wanted some feedback. That's feedback from a couple of us.
That is feedback, yes, sir.
Mr. Stein.
Hirschfeld,
Yes.
currently when you go to the city assessor's website, you can type in an address and get a partial search. With the new construction going on now, who updates that site? You guys go out and take the pictures and the diagrams and then send them to Vanguard, or does those get updated?
We do those visitations to those properties, yes, do the sketching, the measuring, all of that. We enter all the data in locally. Annually, when we do this end of years, when we send that data, have Vanguard upload that to the website. So ownership information is updated nightly, but the big ticket items, the photos, the sketches, that's done on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question too, and I think I asked that earlier in our equalization meeting. When there's a sale, how soon do you get that information from the state?
It depends. We don't get the first half of the year sales until August. When we go down to the State Board of Equalization, they hold those that long. After that, we usually get sales, if not weekly, at least twice a month.
And then you input them at that time, so they're current?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other feedback or questions? Okay, well, you got some feedback.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move to the city administrator reports. I think we already just covered one of them there, didn't we?
You did, President Johnson. That's good. That makes my job easier. There's just one thank you on there for the Senior Citizens grant that we provided to Taylor Senior Citizen Center. I also want to extend a thank you again to Attorney Colling for doing the memo, again, this commission meeting. And I also wanted to announce, some of you may know this already, but livability.com just ranked Dickinson as its best small town in America. And if you go to that website, you'll see us on that top 10 list. And I want to thank the staff at the CVB, Terry Thiel and others, for coordinating the response of information that was requested by livability.com. But it's kind of an honor to be ranked #1 in a poll that really tries to get at quality of place, which is something that the City of Dickinson has stressed for years. So just thought I'd share that with you. You can visit the site yourself and see for yourself all of their statistical measures that they use to come up with that ranking. That would conclude my report unless there's questions.
Well, what were you doing that Mr. Colling had to write through this report?
I was attending the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund board meetings in Grand Forks. I also had some meetings there with people who are attempting to build a hotel in our community, and I also stopped in Fargo and had meetings with other people trying to build things in our community. So I was busy.
I think since we last met, you also, did you go to Oklahoma, or where'd you go? You were a speaker. Why don't you tell us about that?
I was a speaker in Tulsa, Oklahoma for InfoCast. They requested that I speak on behalf of the City of Dickinson and Western North Dakota. I oftentimes speak as not only in my role as City Administrator here, but also in my role as a board member of the North Dakota Oil and Gas Producing Counties Association. So they are dealing with the Mississippian lime play down in that neck of the woods. It is I'll give them credit because they are on the front side of the development, that they're in anticipation of future development. They're trying to get all of their ducks in a row. And they're in a place that we were about 4 years ago, is what I would say. So I was happily there to tell them the story of Dickinson. We get requested to go there because of, again, the same things that livability.com sees in our community. So I get to tell them the good things that the commission does and that our staff is able to pull off.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. As commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments for the City Administrator? All right, we'll move to public safety, and we're going to hear from Chief Stevok with the Fire Department.
President Johnson and Commissioners, the report tonight is, I'm going to say, very apropos on the announcement of livability.com's ranking of the City of Dickinson, because the information that I hope to provide to you, if the screen comes down and we can do so, ties directly into livability and quality of place.
I just need to snap my phone.
Wow, look at that! I got $1 says you can't do it twice. Anyway. Tonight I want to bring some information to you concerning our response capabilities within the City of Dickinson. At the last meeting you heard me discuss our recruitment efforts and our limited success at growing our membership of the Volunteer Fire Department. We also talked about how from 2009 to 2012 the City of Dickinson has increased in population by about 9,000 people, probably actually more. And that's also affected the area of the City of Dickinson. In 2009, Dickinson was 10.4 square miles. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but for the sake of the viewing public, in 2012, city limits looked like the lower right-hand photo. I didn't have a 2009 city map to show, unfortunately. But the 2012 map does show that we increased to about 14 square miles. And there are large areas, major areas of people density that now fall not just beyond the range of our pumpers, but beyond the recommended travel distance of our aerial ladders also. Response time graph you've seen before. Nationally recognized standards tell us that in our response for the type of department we have, we should be able to assemble 15 firefighters on the scene of a general alarm structure fire within 9 minutes. And we should be able to do that 90% of the time. We haven't been able to do that since 2009. I think we did it once in 2010. As our community continues to grow, our response times and our incidents, it can be assumed, will continue to grow also. Now, at the request of the volunteer fire department, full-time staff is picking up more calls during the day when full-time staff is available to take some of the load off of the volunteers. The volunteers asked us what could we do so that they're not leaving work as often as they are, so that they're not taking that travel distance, which has gotten quite a bit more for them, unless they absolutely have to. So full-time staff, when there's at least 3 or more full-time staff available, we try to get that initial response going. We've been tracking the difference that makes. Full-time staff and volunteers, when they're available, readily available at the station, we can have that first truck out in 2 minutes when we receive the call. 2 minutes after the time we get the call, that truck is on its way. On scene in 5 minutes, 30 seconds. This is an average, keep in mind. It's not every time, can't guarantee it. When there's nobody at the station, 5:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at night as an example, volunteers responding from work or home, a holiday or a weekend, even during the day, the truck is en route within 6 minutes of getting the call, on scene within 10 minutes. The pictures you see there is an event that actually happened last week. The pictures were captured actual response by our own Catherine from the Dickinson Press. We had Engine 501 on the one end of town, on the north end of town, with full-time staff handling a different incident. And another call came in. These are a couple of our volunteers running across the street from the parking lot, getting dressed in their equipment and getting to the truck to get that truck rolling. Multiple alarms is something that used to happen infrequently, and although I can't say it's frequently, it's happening to us more than it ever has. Now, why is that? Why are minutes important to us? Minutes are important to us because of the type of construction and the type of fire growth that we're dealing with in this day and age. Today's fires are not the same fires that happened 30 years ago. And the reason for that is the type of construction, lightweight construction. We're dealing with truss ceiling joists, truss floor joists, plywood floor joists versus dimensional lumber. And probably the biggest difference, the biggest component that comes into play, plastics and synthetic furnishings and materials within that room. This is a test done by Underwriter Laboratories. I don't know if I have a laser, oh, there's a laser pointer right there. These are called burn cells. The legacy room represents the way things used to be. Pre-synthetics, if you want to call it that, pre-lightweight construction. The modern room speaks for itself today. There's first flame. 2 minutes into the fire, I shouldn't say first flame, but 2 minutes into the identical fire in both rooms, there's the flame in the legacy room, there's the flame in modern construction. Now what happens, the BTUs and the rate of fire are extreme compared to what it was 30 years ago. And a phenomenon happens that's called flashover. All contents within the room reach its ignition temperature at the same time, and the room literally flashes over. Everything bursts into flame at the same time. When that happens, temperatures in the room will be 1,400 degrees or hotter. A civilian in that room will not survive. A firefighter in full protective equipment will be injured. Those are the same two burn cells in flashover. In the legacy room, the way things used to be, it took 29 minutes and 25 seconds to get to flashover. In the modern room, today's room and content fires, time to flashover, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Every time? Well, no, not every time in this particular test scenario, but it can be stated, and it can be stated based on scientific testing methods, that from the time of first flame to the time you may not be able to get out could be 5 minutes or less. That's why minutes are so important to us. When you go back a couple of slides, full-time staff and firefighters or volunteer firefighters available at the fire hall, en route in 2 minutes. Volunteers, nobody's at the fire hall, sometimes en route in 6 minutes. Well, you know, that doesn't look too bad. But that difference in time is in fact critical to the fire growth. and to what we're able to do when we get on scene. Number of personnel that we arrive on scene with is the other critical factor. Again, and I mentioned this at a previous slide, it can be assumed that incidents and response times will continue to increase with growth. We're at a point in time that we need to determine, based on fire department capabilities, the acceptable level of risk for the city of Dickinson. And that's determined by giving you, the commission, as much information as we can, and hopefully we've been doing that, and hopefully it's been the proper information, and if information is lacking, we need to get that to you. Acceptable level of risk in our personal lives, is an example of that is when we determine whether or not we're going to buy life insurance, or when we determine whether or not the deductible levels of a house insurance policy. That's determining levels of risk. It's not that dissimilar from what we need to do for the city of Dickinson at this point in time. As we go into the next budget cycle for 2014, we'll be looking for that guidance from the commission. We'll be giving you, and hopefully giving you, the right information to help you recognize where we're at as a department, to help you determine and direct us to what the acceptable level of risk for the city of Dickinson will be as we continue to grow and as we move forward into the future. A building that is lost means a building or a business that's out of business, means employees that aren't at work. It's a negative impact to the community in several ways. A fire that's stopped, a building that is saved, means a building or a business that stays open, occupants or employees that aren't displaced, and a negative impact that's minimized on the community. And it is, in fact, a matter of minutes, Commissioners. I hope I've given you some useful information. And again, we'll be looking for guidance from you as we go into the budget cycle and as we look at the wants and needs of the city of Dickinson. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any comments or questions for the chief? I think, as you stated earlier, you weren't really telling the commission a whole lot of new things here. You've been sharing this information with us really for the past 2 or 3 years, and your report tonight, or your presentation tonight, is one of the major reasons why the commission has voted to go ahead with the public safety building on the north side of the interstate. We know that as the community has grown, we need to have more than just one station, and the one that's located downtown. I think what you're also alluding to is that you may be approaching the commission to continue to request additional full-time staff to augment the volunteers, which I think we slowly have been doing over the past 2 or 3 years. But I think, is that the more indirect message there?
You are a very astute mayor, and it must come with the ability to snap your fingers like that. That is correct, and I'm trying to give you the information that you'll need to help make very difficult decisions, decisions that you've got so much on the plate for the city of Dickinson, infrastructure and everything else, and it doesn't seem like there's any division, department, or anything that's going on that isn't coming before you and saying, I need this or we need that. And that's where we're at. We're at a critical need. We're at a critical need at this point in time. We will be asking for staffing. I will try to get as much information to you to minimize the sticker shock or the shock of that as I can, and to validate the reasons why.
Well, I think, you know, what you're just bringing forward is, again, another impact cost from the energy development in the area. We've heard a lot about infrastructure impact, and we'll continue to hear about that tonight, I'm sure. But there's also staffing cost impacts, and so. But thank you for sharing. I think we can handle first reading of the right-of-way ordinance before we go to the timetable agenda. Mr. Colling, are you introducing this?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, Commissioners, this ordinance is a right-of-way permit ordinance. It provides authority within our city code for the city to require a right-of-way permit from contractors or other parties who would be doing work within the publicly dedicated right-of-way. This ordinance dovetails with a contract that you've seen in a prior meeting with respect to construction management services. We are engaging an engineering firm to provide construction management for the city, and this right-of-way permit is an effort to help us determine when it is the contractors are doing work within public right-of-way. As provided in this ordinance, a person or a contractor, any party who was intending to block the street, block public right-of-way, or do construction activities within the public right-of-way would need to acquire a right-of-way permit prior to doing that work and have that application filed with the city and reviewed by the city engineer before the work would begin. There would also be a penalty for failing to obtain that right-of-way permit, and in the case we did have somebody who did occupy the public right-of-way without obtaining the permit or without the approval of the city, that would be a violation that we could prosecute then through a municipal court. This ordinance would be Ordinance 1514 for your record keeping, and city staff would recommend approval, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Colling. You've heard the introduction here. At this time, we'd invite anyone from the public to comment regarding this proposed ordinance. If you wish to do so, you can come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Is there anybody from the public? There's no one from the public that wishes to comment. I'd invite comments or questions by city commissioners or other city staff.
Mr. President,
Mr. Steiner.
what is the application fee going to be at this time?
Mr. Steiner, Commissioner Steiner, we have had some discussion about that. It is, will be provided for within the city's fee schedule, the annual fee schedule that you adopt. What we have talked about at this point is having that application fee be at $250. That is typical for some of the other applications that we do require within the city. And, but again, it's at your discretion. It's intended basically to provide some cost recovery for the administration of this permit, as city staff will have to take that over as well.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Steiner.
So if a contractor comes in and they're going to build on a lot, they have to pick up their building permit, and do they also pay at that time for a sewer and water permit?
No,
They do not?
Commissioner Steiner, if they're going to build on a lot, that would not involve a right-of-way permit. The only thing that they need a right-of-way permit is to construct within the right-of-way limits. So once
if
they're
going out
on,
to the middle of the street to hook up to the water
They would-
main or the sewer, that's when they have to pick up the permit also.
yes, sir.
Okay. And will they do that at the time they come in for the building permit, or can that be done at a later time?
No, it'll be whenever they're ready to build in the right-of-way. Where there'll be a identified window so that the city won't allow them to take all summer to build within the right-of-way. Obviously, we need an identified time window so that we can send our inspectors, our inspection team out, so that they don't have to go continually back every day to make sure that they're not building in the right-of-way and it's not being inspected.
What do you see as a reasonable time for them to block off part of the street?
It just
Or-
really,
Or just a standard sewer water main hookup?
well, usually they could get that done in at least a week, minimum,
Week.
yeah, I think that a normal window for them to do standard water and sewer hookups would be a week probably. So we would window out a week at their request, whatever that week is. And it's really just to identify when they're going to be there and what they're doing so that we could then have our inspection team go over and make sure that they're installing it properly.
So are we going to have someone there when they actually open it up And when they close it?
Well, the inspection process is difficult to go through during this setting, but what we're really looking for is compaction in the trench when they put the pipe in, so that when they put the street back on, it doesn't cave in, as can be seen in some of the developments around town.
So at that point in time, you'll need an inspector there to make sure the impaction is correct before they bring in the concrete.
That's right. That's right. So the inspector will have to be there during the backfilling process. And for instance, when they're going to pour a sidewalk, they're going to need to be there to take a slump test with the first concrete truck and so forth.
Are we going to have the staff available
Well,
for that?
well, we're hiring this is what Mr. Colling was relating to before. We're putting a construction inspection consultant on. And when the contractor comes forward to get the permit, then they will make a deposit with the city that will cover that charge for our inspection team to go out and inspect that.
Thank
So-
you.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Watson, so all contractors should know that this is, if I hire a contractor, he should know he has to do this, right?
I have a letter drafted that's going to go out within the next couple days, and I'd be glad to make that letter available to the press. And we do have the right-of-way permit itself drafted and ready to go. That's had some other folks, we've had the construction inspection team look at those and put some conditions for construction included in that permit, so that, and I will also like to make that permit available to the press if they'd like to, for that, to get it out to the public. But yes, and we'll be sending out letters to all the contractors and developers in town so that they will, and actually I've been having meetings with a lot of the contractors and developers in Dickinson, so that this has been known for the last couple of weeks already, just by through a verbal approach with during my meetings.
Mr.
Good.
President,
Because I'm not fond of stop work orders.
Well, and the city's not either, but the city's not fond of infrastructure that's being installed improperly also.
Okay. Just want to educate them.
Well, we want to make sure that the pipes are being installed properly and the sidewalks are walkable and so forth. It's our infrastructure, and we really need to protect that.
I'd just like to make sure that we have enough time between the reading of the first ordinance, the first reading, and the second reading to allow for your letters to get out to everybody, so we don't have the second reading before they get a chance to read those letters.
We, in discussions with Mr. Kessel, we had decided to make the right-of-way permit take effect on August 5th. So if I'm not mistaken, the next reading would be the next commission meeting.
15, that gives them 2 weeks, so if you get it out next couple days, then
They should have time to read it and come into the next commission meeting if there are questions. Yes,
no, we can
But-
always postpone the second reading if something comes up too.
good.
So it's always been the responsibility of the contractor to contact the city before they tap in, but this formalizes the process and gives you teeth to kind of work with on the issue.
That's right, Commissioner, and the contractor will still have to call the city in order to tell them a specific time during the day that they want the construction inspection out there. But this kind of limits the window where our construction team will have to be kind of looking for it, kind of limits the window of oversight for our construction inspection team. The contractor will still have to call in to the construction inspection team if they're going to cut the street and so forth, just to let them know that they're in the right-of-way.
And so when this happens, it is the contractor that cuts into the street, and it's the contractor that's responsible for repairing it back to the specifics that are laid out.
Yes.
And that's how it's always been.
And it will remain that. We're not taking any responsibilities away from the contractor. We are just putting our own eyes on the construction activities so that we can be assured that they're proper and that they'll be long-lasting.
Okay. And then we've made an emergency provision in here. So for instance, Commissioner Dukart, when your sewer backed up, you wouldn't have to worry about having to go through this process before somebody could come in and start working. We have an emergency provision so that immediately they could start working on an emergency situation, and it's still their responsibility to follow up with the city and before everything's wrapped up, making sure that all the parties are involved.
And that's right. For instance, with a water break, for instance, you can't wait around for 2 or 3 weeks and go out and stop the water from flowing out in the street. So of course, there's emergency conditions that are built in.
The other point I was trying to make is, in the past, this is how we've done it. If you don't educate the contractors and they don't know and aren't watching this or don't see it in the paper, they will follow the old way. That's why you have to keep them informed. It's kind of like when we trying to do with the garbage. Well, you don't put your leaves in the garbage or your grass clippings. All of a sudden, we were supposed to put them, and half of us didn't know it, and we were getting letters. So I think warning the public ahead of time and putting it in the paper, and not saying everyone reads the paper, but the more we can educate them, the quicker we're going to get this enforced.
Well, and obviously attaching it to any future building permit would be an important way so that we don't let anyone fall between the cracks. So from this point on, it should be part of the application procedure that, by the way, here's how you tap into the plumbing.
And this is really meant as part of a way to separate out the actual building permit of the buildings and the construction that is happening in the right-of-way. So the construction happening in the right-of-way is now going to be completely separate from the vertical construction that happens on the construction sites. So that it just really meant to let the city know who's in our right-of-way, what they're doing, and when they're doing it.
I think I'm going to interrupt here. I apologize. I didn't realize this would go that long. Normally, first reading of ordinances go rather quickly. We'll come back to this later. We do have some timetables to get through. And the first one is 5 o'clock, Dickinson Downtown Committee proposal. Mr. Kessel, do you have any introductory remarks that you want to make here?
President Johnson and Commission, as you know, we've gone down the road of hiring or engaging at least DDG or Dickinson Design Group to look at our downtown, make some suggestions, and provide a development plan to us. We've gone through a contract round, and what they provided to us today is a revision from the first time we had a discussion. There are some very brief revisions yet from what you have in front of you on the project scope and schedule and such. So we'll go through those a little bit later, but I think it's more important to hear from DDG. And one thing that I'm really excited about is the downtown business owners are starting what appears to be a downtown merchants association or a downtown association, and that's something that I think is really exciting. I think it will enhance communication efforts on both sides, and they're here to talk to you this evening as well.
So who is talking to us now?
Well, they have a representative, and please, yes.
Excuse me, are we looking for Mr. Reddick first?
I guess it doesn't matter to me.
I think I'd like to hear from Mr. Reddick first so he can
Okay.
talk about
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, and others, it's always a happy occasion when I come back to Dickinson. I hear more and more, and I see more and more of my friends each time I come here. And I know you've got a really tight agenda tonight, and I'm here, I think, more to answer questions than give you another presentation or another reason to embark on an initiative to repair and revitalize the downtown. I've come before you at every meeting, with a bit of a bias. Sean mentioned Dickinson being awarded #1 livable city for a certain size classification. I mean, that is I was hoping everybody would bust out in applause to that. I mean, that is, it left me thinking, well, maybe there isn't anything I need to do here. But I come from a place that, for a different size of a city, obviously, has won that award several times. And but the most important thing that I can impart, and I said I didn't come with prepared remarks, and I didn't, but I wrote down some things that I come back to over and over. There is no single thing you can do for the quality of the future sense of place and the quality of place in Dickinson than to embark on a revitalization of downtown. That is just a fact. Whether you hire me or DDG or somebody else, that is a fact. And it's easy to document around the country why that is. And if I don't do anything else in the time that I've been here, and it will be that I convinced enough people to believe in that eventuality, whether I'm a part of it or not. You have an amazing, albeit daunting, time before you in terms of people moving here in unprecedented numbers, unlike any place in the country. And I understand the pressures that brings on money and budget and priority. But I would just double down on that's also the moment to be leveraging that opportunity to make downtown work, because the benefits that will flow to you for generations will result from all of us taking the time to do that and get it right. So when I was here a couple weeks ago, I knew the wheels were in motion to establish a downtown association. I couldn't be more excited about that. That's also a key component when you look around the country at places that are at this moment that you're at, is that a group of downtown business owners and building owners came together and said, we're putting our stake in the ground on this, and here's how important it is. So is that a good enough introduction of?
I have a question.
Yeah.
The way I read the information, you have, you're proposing an agreement now. I think it's for roughly a $50,000 fee plus expenses.
Yeah.
And can you briefly summarize what you're going to do, what you'd be doing now for that, and kind of the timetable?
The timetable is roughly over the next 90 days. We're going to do most of the parts that were a part of the previous proposal. We have pulled that apart into several phases within what might be normally thought as planning, but we've also pulled out the design of the first two inaugural buildings back to something that we're going to fund internally. So the amount of the contract changed to something less than a third of what was presented before, but in fact, and you're getting the better part of what we had before. At the end of this 90-day process, there will be a very specific master plan of development going forward. This is not a planning plan, this is a development plan. And that development plan will be broken into recommended phases. That'll be a colored computer drawing. It'll be very specific about where buildings are, where parking and parking structures are, where entertainment is, where the public plaza and potential ice rink will be, and that will be followed by computer modeling, 3D modeling of what that would look like, similar to what I presented to you last late summer in the brief visioning exercise for Dickinson. The concept package for those two buildings is going to be tantamount to a schematic design package, which is a site plan and parking plan, building plan, cross-sections, exterior elevations and renderings. And then we spend some time rendering what the public square plaza ice rink could look like. And then we, at the end of that, put a fairly detailed timeline together that tries to be as realistic as it can be about what's achievable going forward, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years out. And it would be remiss of us if we didn't have some attachment to all that to say, and here are some funding strategies. And furthermore, here's where we can look deeper to go find the so-called first phase monies to make those first couple, 3 buildings happen. Because I've said numerous times when I've been here, and I'll say it again, and I know it's being recorded, when you get the first 2 or 3 buildings coming out of the ground and being occupied, we will all be over the hump of getting the revitalization started. It will be fun and downhill. It's going to be hard work in the meantime, and it requires all of us to have our hands on the wheel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reddick. I have another question, sir. Sir? In the recent CityScan publication, there was a very nice article on Minot, and I know you've worked up Minot, says a better downtown for Minot. And I know Minot's had some special circumstances with flooding that we haven't had to deal with, fortunately. But in here, you know, this article talks about them getting $18 million from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, you know, another $5 million or so from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that type of thing. So is that, when you mention funding strategies, you're looking for that kind of participation in the future?
Correct. That and anywhere else we can find it. Without sounding boastful, I've been working steadily in Minot for 3 years. When we were first doing that 2.5 and 3 years ago, there was very little pulse in anything happening or trying to happen downtown. And fast forwarding, none of if you look in Portland or around the country and any place that's embarking on downtown revitalization, it takes some public assistance from somewhere. And every place has a different way to go find that and a different mechanism. And in some places it's a little easier, in some places it's not, and it's not terribly easy anywhere. In the absence of that initiative coming from public officials in Minot, and realizing that if we didn't go find the public money, in addition to the private money we obviously needed to find, then the beautiful plans for Minot were not going to go forward. We lugged that backpack on and went out and found all the public money, or at least where it was and how to go find it, and in fact wrote the EDA grant applications to go get the money, and then interviewed in front of EDA 3 times to convince them 3 times that this was a wise expenditure of money. So we're prepared to do all of that here and any other places that we can find that are compatible with Dickinson.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other commission or questions by commissioners?
Mr. President, I did have Mr. Kessel also put an insert from the community of Williston about their downtown revitalization program and interest that they're getting also. So I find it very interesting and encouraging that the cities that we compete with are also in competition with the downtown revitalization project. So I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but it was pretty interesting. But I think all our downtowns are the same. You know, it's the key to the city. We need to revitalize them. Now's the time. You guys got to find us how to do that. And you know, with the help of the Downtown Association, I'd like to talk about them a little bit. I really wasn't aware that we had an association until I actually put out there that I thought we should start an association. And then a couple of the gals approached me and said, well, we've done a lot of work on this here. And I said, hey, that's fantastic. Here it is. Run with it. And I think we'll hear from that group right after Mr.
I would specifically like to thank the sustained effort you've been putting into this whole revolution and revitalization downtown, and most recently into lighting a fire under the getting started on the Downtown Association. So I thank you for that.
Mr. Reddick, make sure there's a lot of parking.
You know, I could stand here and I mean, that's like pushing a button for me. It's all about parking.
It is.
I could tell you that it's all about beautiful buildings with red sandstone. It's all about parking. And if the parking doesn't work, the downtown doesn't work. And our biggest, we had a discussion, my partners are here from DDG. We had a 2-hour meeting this afternoon to try to figure out how to begin to solve the parking funding issue.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Commissioners, my name is Josh Nichols, and as Mr. Steiner and Mr. Kessel alluded to, I am here to chat with you a little bit about a passionate group of individuals who are downtown enthusiasts. It's made up of not only retailers, but also organizations and just individuals with a vested interest in revitalizing downtown and primarily starting a downtown association. Now, progress for this has been happening over the course of some months. We've been in discussions to try to figure out a best way or best practice to move forward with this scenario, and over the next few weeks we'll be moving that process forward very, very quickly. Over the next few Mondays, the next 4 in fact, throughout July, we'll be having a downtown meeting, a brainstorming session between interested parties in the downtown effort, businesses, others within the community, to give us ideas about where we might go forward with this actual association, and then those ideas will be presented to a steering committee that will be chosen on August 5th. August 2nd will be the nomination deadline for that particular nomination for that steering committee, and then August 5th we will select those committee members, and then those list of ideas that we've brought forth over the course of those Monday meetings will be used as a basis to begin the association discussions. You have included in your packets, I believe, a draft copy of a proposal including some objectives, some goals, a mission and vision. Now these are just very preliminary ideas, but it's something that we're going to be using to kind of model the beginning of the organization. Once that happens on August 5th and the steering committee is formed, we will then start the process of creating formal bylaws and more firm objectives and those types of things, and moving the organization forward. Right now, the information we need to get out to the community is when these meetings are and those types of things, so that we can get as many people on board and in the room as possible. And again, those meeting dates are posted, those meeting dates are posted on downtowndickinson.com. This current domain is registered for the Alive at 5 events, 5:30 to 8:30 every Thursday after this week, if you'd like to attend. But after those events are over, we'll be converting that website to a true Downtown Dickinson website for the association, and also hours for retailers and things of that nature. But right now there is a Downtown Association link on that website, and you can visit that to find out more times and information about the upcoming meetings that we're having. Also, you can contact the association or the planning group for the association at contact@downtowndickinson.com. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, stories, music, anecdotes?
Where will the meetings be held?
We'll be having the all the meetings will be at the Oddfellows Lodge, 30 First Avenue West in downtown Dickinson. And those are going to be at 10 a.m. for the next 4 Mondays, and then also at 10 a.m. on August 5th, which is where we'll be deciding the steering committee, who will then be formed into hopefully a association board.
I see that Mr. Whitman is quasi-involved in this here. I assume that you have the list of downtown businesses.
Yes, we do have a list of downtown businesses, and over the course of the last few months, we've had parties who have been more involved or more interested, and we're really trying to compile that major list, and then once the decision is made who the steering committee is, we will then decide how we're actually going to involve the association when it comes to members, or what region is broken down as the downtown region and who will be involved in that capacity. But the goal is to have as many people involved as possible. Personally, I was involved with some of the downtown initiatives before we were all swimming in pools of money and just taking a dip every night. But before all the development that was happening, and the interest for me was just, hey, I'd really like a downtown where I could go and do some cool things. I'd like to go have dinner. I'd like to have an Alive at 5 event. I'd like to see a play. And so, my interests have grown over the time just being involved as a community member, not necessarily a retailer or an organization that has a building downtown or an insurance agency or et cetera. So I think that there are lots of individuals within the city of Dickinson who will be very interested in being a part of this committee, part of this association, and also supporting all the downtown efforts. Which I will note that I agree with Mr. Reddick that the biggest concern with downtown is parking, and if I could just get my own parking space, we could just drop all of this.
If I could, just 2 things I wanted to say is number one, you heard me say earlier, and I just want to reiterate how excited I am to see a downtown group come together. And I also wanted to thank you for including Mr. Josephson in those meetings that serve as that link between the city and the group. I think that's awful important as well.
Any other comments or questions here? I think we'll just treat this as if it were a public hearing, so anyone that would like to comment regarding the issue of downtown may do so. Just invite you to the podium. Anybody else want to comment? Well, okay. I too am happy to see the downtown association begin to come into being. We have our comprehensive plan, and in the comprehensive plan there are multiple mentions of downtown, and you've in the document you provided us, you have a draft vision statement and in your objectives and goals. I would encourage your vision statement to state pretty explicitly what it is you hope the downtown to become. What you envision it being, as opposed to just all of us working together. I mean, and I think Mr. Reddick probably has some real ideas there too. I would also encourage whatever you write that it be consistent with the plan. Now, if you can't find that it can be consistent with the plan, then maybe there's a problem with the plan and you should request the commission to change the plan. But I don't think what we ought to do here is have an association, say, that has one vision of downtown, a development group that has another vision, and our formal plan having a third vision. We want all this to be the same. And I'm not stating that this plan is infallible, but right now it is our legal document. It is the one that we have adopted. If you find that what we've written in here is inconsistent with the way it actually should be, please tell us. But we want everything, or I think we want everything to kind of be consistent. So.
Mr. President, Commissioners, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I did want to let you know that thankfully Commissioner Snyder
Can you identify yourself,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. I thought you remembered.
No.
My name
Wow.
is Cami Havelka, and I represent Lillians of Dickinson and the Downtown Association. Mr. Steiner gracefully had given us a copy of the plan, and we were able to review it. And I think we're all, for those of us that were able to look at the plan, I think we unifiably can say that we agree with that plan. The mission statement and the agenda that we had presented to you was something that was thoughtfully but quickly put out so we could let you know how serious we are on creating the Downtown Association.
Good. Mr. Reddick, oh, I thought you were making a move to come up. You were just, anybody else wish to comment? Okay, Mr. Colling and Mr. Kessel, help me out here. I think what we have left to do then, I think what's on the agenda here is a request for either us to go forward with the proposal or not. And that proposal essentially would be to expend approximately $50,000 plus expenses. Anytime you two want to join the meeting here, let me know.
We were just discussing, President Johnson, the moving forward, because there are a couple items that we did find in the proposal that we'd like to change.
Well, I have kind of one thing that sticks with me a little bit, and that is I don't mind paying for the expenses. It's the expenses plus 10% that kind of bothers me. I mean, in my professional career, most of the time when we have an agreement similar to this with outside professionals where you pay the expenses, but you don't pay a markup on the expenses. That's one thing I object to.
If it's amenable to the commission, what we'd like to do then is allow city staff to make some of those kinds of changes. That along with the right of first refusal, there's just a couple things, setting some actual dates where times need to start so that we're very specific within the contract on what our expectations are. I think that still needs to be done. So, you have a couple options then, is to either adopt it and allow us to negotiate those amendments and bring you back those amendments and report to you what they were, or simply pause and wait another commission period before, so that we can make those amendments and then bring them to you for adoption as a final document.
Is there any commissioner that has a basic objection to going forward with this? I mean, kind of.
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean.
Now is the time, that's for
Okay.
sure.
So, Mr. Colling, I think in general, we're all going to vote yes for this. We may have some very specific items in there that we don't agree with, but in order to move this along and not delay it 2 weeks, is there a way we can vote yes, but have grant you two the authority to negotiate the final terms here?
Yes, Mr. President, I think my recommended motion would be that you would authorize city staff to enter into negotiations to produce a final document and report that document back to the city commission.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Stuckert. So we have the motion before us. Is there a second?
Second with a clarification, Mr. President.
Well, you seconded it, now you can
Okay,
ask.
second.
Go ahead.
Clarification. With your recommendation, will this be financed out of the 1% or the hospitality tax?
I don't know where it would be financed right now. You have, right now, I would probably see it more as a general fund
General fund?
expenditure at this point until you maybe get more specific. I mean, I don't know that it's truly, a visitor attraction type thing, which means hospitality. The 30% of the 1% are for capital expenditures. The study is not really a capital expenditure, in my view. So I think for now, I would look at this as probably a general fund expenditure.
Thank
unless you wanted to tax downtown insurance agencies for it.
We pay enough.
Oh, okay. I think we'll have to sort out the funding for it later. Mrs. Johnson probably has some better ideas on this, too. Other comments or questions? Okay, well, you have the motion before you and the second. We'll proceed to vote. Mrs. Dukart?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. We'll move to the 5:10 timetable agenda item. This is a special use permit for the Fisher Group, and is this yours, Mr. Berton?
That is correct,
Okay.
Mr. President, Commissioners. The Fisher Group is requesting approval of a special use permit to install additional manufactured homes at the existing Camp of the Heart Park. For several decades, Camp of the Heart has been located east of State and north of the river, and it's been considered vested in. This existing special use permit would address the expansion of the park, and then also the existing RVs and some of the manufactured homes that are there as well. They are proposing to pave the existing gravel roads that are already there, and also add linkages, sidewalks for the pedestrians, and then also bring the park up to our current manufactured home park standards. Specifically, that would include a storm shelter for all the RVs and the proposed mobile homes as well. The Planning Commission and City staff recommend approval contingent upon the 11 conditions that are attached as part of your resolution today. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
To your knowledge, is the Fisher Group accepting of the 11 conditions that?
They were at the Planning Commission. They're well aware of the conditions.
Mr. Colleen, what is the resolution number?
Mr. President, this will be Resolution 24-2013.
2013? 24? Okay. Comments or questions by commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-2013.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I guess my only concern is with the number of manufactured home spots that are being added, which is fine and definitely something that our community needs. What provisions do we have in place? Now, you've done a great job of laying out how we want it to look as it comes online. What ramifications do we have 10, 20, 15 years from now as far as maintenance, upkeep, and those type of issues? Because these will not be city streets within this property.
That is correct.
They'll be privately owned and privately maintained.
Absolutely.
Snow removal, everything.
Absolutely.
But that also means someone eventually needs to repave and upkeep too. How do we keep control of that?
Well, we have two parts. We have the special use permit, we have the conditions that are attached, and they're not addressing the operation issue. The operation issue is addressed remotely or vaguely in other parts of our code. Now, we've talked about that in the department of how do we address the manufactured homes, the operations of that. It's extremely difficult to craft conditions with respect to that. The one thing that we can do, Commissioner, would be that the road and the areas that are expanded upon meet our current conditions that we would have. So compared to times past where the manufactured home parks have been built, where there really wasn't an inspection, or if there was, it was minimal. The roads were built substandard in many ways. That's why we have evidence that they're breaking up prematurely. These standards here that we'll have for the road will be the standards that the city engineer gets to look at, would be the same standards we'd have for our roads. Even though we are not going to be responsible for them, the construction of the roads can be the same construction that we would have for that. So that should prolong the life with respect to the infrastructure and to the roads. crafting conditions if you would like on the operations, and then tying it to the special use permit, we could do so if you would like to make a motion that way. I've always found it extremely difficult to do because you have transfer of ownerships and the rest. If you do it right the first time, if they construct it right the first time, they will be able to command a good market condition compared to buying an existing one and trying to upgrade it. And with that, you would hope that they would keep it in a better condition to command the higher space rates for that.
So you feel on the front side, we've done a lot of the groundwork that prevents some of the issues that we've seen from past development?
Absolutely. When you look at the code that specifically addresses our manufactured home parks or mobile home parks, this will comply to it. The additional area will comply to it. And if you've noticed that the existing RV park is going to be brought up to pretty close to the same standards. I think a big key component on that is that the RVs and the mobile homes will all be factored in. We'll factor in the general population that would be for the park, and will require them to build this tornado shelter. Be the first we'll have in the city that will be a tornado shelter within a manufactured home park, or probably any of our residential structures that I could think of, other than public buildings that we may have, public maybe schools that you could use that'll actually have that addressed, and they will need to conform. They will need to provide either their ideas or thoughts of a storage building for one big one for the entire population, or they could do 2 or 3 centrally located throughout the development. We've left that open, and Bill Falsing and I will be reviewing that as part of their permit.
So since streets will be constructed to city standards, it should make it easier for fire, police, garbage, all of the services that we will provide to it as a community.
Absolutely.
Right.
One of the conditions, they need to have a second point of access, and that will be negotiated between the city engineer and the fire chief. They've already discussed that with the Fisher Group. But the normal utilities or services that we provide, we will have those addressed as part of their moving forward with their project.
Why is this, remind me again why this is different from a regular housing development where we would take ownership of the streets and the infrastructure within the streets?
The lots on this one are spaces. It's owned unified. It's by one ownership, so they cannot sell them individually, and they cannot transfer title.
Okay, so these lots will remain with the developer? Or
Absolutely.
It won't go with the owner of the modular home?
Correct. The owner of the home will pay a space rent for that, but the overall mobile home or the Camp of the Heart facility will be under unified ownership for that. They would be responsible for roads, all the infrastructure, and however they address the water and rent fees for that.
That's different from the development on the south side that was done in the late 70s or early 80s.
Correct. There are portions of that that are individually sold.
Where the lots
compared
were
to
sold, yeah.
Unified ownership.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. President?
Mr. Watson.
I do have a question, thank you. Since we're building these streets and sidewalks and so forth to city standards, will then these same streets be, will the city have construction oversight for this as well? Or how are we going to determine that the streets and so forth are built according to the city standards, since it's on private property?
We can add a condition if that's a concern of the city engineer that we would have oversight with the construction of those roads. Other than traditionally where we would just review and approve the plans, we could have that oversight and add that as an additional condition if you prefer. I have no objection to that.
I think without that additional condition, the construction of the infrastructure is not guaranteed, and therefore your longevity of the infrastructure is not guaranteed.
Yeah, I would agree. You only get one shot to do this right the very first time if you want the longevity of that community.
It wouldn't just be the city streets, would it? I mean, it would be the water and sewer also. I mean, again, just going back to the development that was done over 30 years ago in the south, I think there were issues with water and sewer that if the city had been doing that, they would have been done differently than what was done. And so if we were going to have engineering oversight here or city oversight, it would pertain to more than just streets and curb and gutter, that it would also pertain to the infrastructure underground.
I would agree with that, and we do have a construction inspection team that's going to come on board hopefully soon, within the next month, and this would be a good project for them.
So we would need a 12th condition here then.
I would agree, Mr. President. A 12th condition could, and I'm just thinking offhand, I don't know if Mr. Colleen's writing up a condition or not, but it could just be the infrastructure that's associated with the mobile home park shall be approved and inspected to the satisfaction of the city engineer. And that is broad enough that it could be, that would apply for both the review of the plans and also the construction inspection as well.
I'm just curious, Mr. Corton, what is their plan for the tornado shelters?
That is something that both Mr. Falsing and I have been looking at. You know, you would think that that information, that other jurisdictions, especially in Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas, that would have specific ones for manufactured home or mobile home parks, they've deferred it to the code, to the building code. Basically, a structural engineer would have to design it to the wind load rates for our particular area, which could be to a maximum of 200. So they would just design a bigger building to withstand those wind load rates for an occupancy of the total occupancy for the building if they wanted to build it. Or there are other shelters that they use that FEMA has some designs for. And I've left it up to them to decide which one of many options they want to pursue, or they would just have a structural engineer meet the 2009 building code and design it so that it would withstand those the wind load in order to be approved.
Mr. Colling, looking at the 11 current conditions in the resolution, it just, at a quick glance, appears to me that if we amended number 3 and number 8 to account for approvals by the city engineer, you could do this. But what I'm wondering is, should we defer this for one more meeting to give you an opportunity to craft the language that is also acceptable to the Fisher Group?
Mr. President, I think construction management and inspection is not something that, to my knowledge, has been discussed with the proponent of this project. I think it may be wise to have that discussion with them prior to approval of the special use permit.
I know we're dealing with a reputable group here, but I think it would be good to have our T's crossed and our I's dotted. We don't want to have any chance of repeating what took place 30 years ago. I think we all agree we need a property of this nature, but we want it done well. Just go ahead, Mr. Altman.
Well, and this is on one of our main thoroughfares. It's where our new bypass will be. There will be a lot of traffic, and we've done such a good job. You guys have done such a good job of building out our community so that not only does it fit everything that we need, but it's visually appealing. And this is such a pretty piece of property, and it can be done very well, and it will fill a void that we have. And I just think it should be done absolutely top-notch.
Is there anyone here representing the Fisher Group this evening? Okay. I don't know if this is real time sensitive for them.
Mr. Mayor, there's a lot of conditions, have you noticed, and probably the first condition that they're really going to, if I was them, make sure that it's been satisfied is have our consultants finish their analysis for sewer and water. If sewer and water is not available, the site's on hold until we've crafted a condition or we've resolved that issue, similar to what we've done on some other projects, or at least delayed the occupancy. We'd have to work with them delaying the occupancy of some of these manufactured homes. They are different from a house because you do a post and pier inspection and you place it there after the infrastructure. So it's not as if it takes 6 to 9 months. So we would need to know definitively our capacity for sewer water before we were able to issue a permit, because those things could be erected very quickly.
Will it be post and pier since these are rented lots though, or will it be?
That's standard that we do. It's the state does it. We've done that all throughout the city. So, but there's a lot of conditions in order for them to that they need to address before they move forward.
Do you think they're probably asking for the special use permit before they proceed? Because this would be an expensive project if we didn't approve it and they had started all this.
Well, they've already, if I recall right, they've already at least started the process with us to have our consultants look at their site. So they've already started that. So the fees are already starting that are already associated for the consultants for that. There are fees. Additional 2 weeks I don't see is going to be detrimental for their project at all. They could listen to the discussion tonight, as I would imagine they probably would, and from there get an idea that the commission is in favor of their project, or generally in favor of their project. We just want to address this concern about the infrastructure for that.
And they've been able to add quite a number of manufactured houses to this development on existing lots that they already had. I see that they've added lots that they hadn't had before. So they've moved forward with some preliminary construction, or at least expanding what they already had.
It's actually within the confines of it.
Yeah.
The problem that I dealt with when I was looking at this project about a year ago, the records that we have for several decades ago is difficult to tell. All I could really find is an old plan that showed, in essence, their site plan that showed where the spaces were located at, and I couldn't make a determination if mobile homes were allowed at one time or were never allowed due to our housing shortage and the rest. I also looked at the state permit, and I made a determination that it seemed reasonable to allow them to have that with the idea that they were going to come back and upgrade the site.
Yeah, so they've built up to
where they can go, correct.
To where they can go.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we should wait the 2 weeks and bring this back. Now, I've lost track. Did we have a motion and a second already regarding this?
Yes, we did.
So, Mr. Colling, can I just ask that those that moved the motion and provided the second, that they withdraw their motion and second? And
Mr. President, I think my recommendation would be that you take a motion to table this matter at this time.
just a motion to table?
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to argue with the city attorney. Would there be a motion to table this for 2 weeks?
I'd make that motion. Second.
Okay, we have the motion by Mr. Steiner and a second by Mr. Altman. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I might,
Yes.
I think it's important to let the developer know that this construction oversight will be at a cost to the developer.
Okay. Well, I think you and Mr. Cretan, Mr. Coley, Mr. Kessel can discuss all the details of that and let the developer know. Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
I'd just reiterate, we're all very supportive of it. It's a very well thought out plan. We just want to make sure we get it done right first time. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, and you want to get the agreement spelled out, the special use permit spelled out, because 20 years from now, somebody's looking at this, they're going to go back to this document, and this will be probably the governing document, so.
Well, and if there's transfer of ownership at some point, we want to
Exactly.
make sure all of that is going to go into effect.
And all those things can happen.
Yeah.
Yep. Other comments? All right, we're going to proceed to vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries, so this is tabled. Is there anything else we have to do on that, Mr. Colling?
No, Mr. President.
Okay. All right, we're already at 5:15. There's a public hearing for rezoning petition. Mr. Cretan, would you introduce that item?
Yes, Mr. President, this is a rezoning petition from general commercial to downtown commercial for the property. It's located in the northwest corner of 3rd Avenue West in Villard. The former Saks Motors building. Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval contingent upon the one condition that's attached with your adopting ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cretan. This is a public hearing, so we'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone that wishes to comment regarding this issue may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Anybody wish to comment? There's no one that wishes to comment. We'll declare the public hearing closed. This is an ordinance. Mr. Colleen, what number is it?
Mr. President, this will be ordinance 1515.
Ordinance 1515. Any comments or questions by city commissioners or other city staff?
I'll make a motion to approve first reading ordinance 1515.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Further discussion? We'll proceed to vote then. Ms. Stuckert.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Altman.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We'll go to the 5:20 timetable item. This is also a public hearing for South Park easement vacation. And who's introducing this?
Mr. President, I will
Mr.
take
Fuller.
that one.
Okay.
This is a resolution providing for the vacation of an easement, 20-foot public utility easement in South Park First Edition. Pursuant to North Dakota state law, we have advertised a public hearing for this matter. We have not received any objection to the vacation of the easement. Assuming that the board approves this, the easement will be vacated. All of the landowners adjacent to this property have signed off on the easement, as have public utility companies that may have an interest in that easement. Because of the vacation on this side of the property, the landowner has agreed to grant the city a substantially equivalent public utility easement on the other side of the property in the event that the city would need that. For your record keeping, this would be a resolution 25-2013. City staff would recommend approval. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Colling, for the introduction. At this time, we'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone who wishes to comment regarding this issue may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. Anybody from the public? Nobody from the public that wishes to comment. I'll declare the public hearing closed and invite comments by commissioners.
I have a few comments. The utility easement is on land that's currently annexed into the city, but this property is adjacent to the rest of the South Park development that has not been annexed, that lies south of this property. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner Altman, yes.
Okay. In my 3 years on the commission, I have not gotten more calls or complaints than I have on the South Park property with the weed control, the mowing, and just the general upkeep of the land that is south of where they're asking for the utility easement. If you drive down there, and if you drove down there this spring and last fall, the number of tumbleweeds and just the poor management. I've worked with county commission weed control. I have fielded tons of calls from properties and business owners along that Highway 22 corridor south of this. And I realize that the property that they're asking for the easement on is annexed into the city, but if you're going to be a good steward of your property, you have to be a good steward of everything, not just the current project that you're working on. And so I would want, I guess, some condition or some stipulation or resolution for them to properly manage the land that's out of our jurisdiction and hasn't been annexed before we'd proceed with something like this.
You guys need another sidebar?
Commissioner Olman, I think that raises a fair point. And we do have weed control issues there and property control issues. We recognize that. It is something that's out of our jurisdiction, and we don't have direct authority to issue weed control orders since it has not been annexed into city limits. We have zoning control over that property, plating control, but nothing specifically as it pertains to weed control. That being said, the decision on whether or not to vacate the easement is a decision at the discretion of the commission. And if that is something that you would wish not to vote for in order to have further discussions with the property owner about the weed control issue, that is a matter that's within your discretion to do. My only concern with that is that we don't have the jurisdiction over that property, and we would be relying from an enforcement perspective on another jurisdiction to do enforcement of those sorts of things. The other issue that I don't know the answer to is I'm not sure whether the property owner that owns this parcel on which the easement will be vacated is the same as the property owner of the remaining South Park, or what has been platted as the South Park addition. I'm not sure. I know that it was all platted together at the same time, but I'm not sure whether or not this particular parcel has since been transferred to somebody for development purposes. So I think that's an unresolved question that we don't know the answer to at this point.
Who requested the vacation?
I don't recall the name of the party. They are intending to construct a multifamily housing unit on that parcel, but I don't recall the name of the applicant.
Any other comments?
Well, I can just tell you, this made snow removal look like a piece of cake for me to address compared to the calls that I've taken on this issue. And there has to be a manner in which we can either table this until we can have a concrete discussion of who the parties are involved, something to get the attention and to resolve the issue once and for all.
I think that's a reasonable request from Commissioner
I agree.
Holtman.
We don't have a motion on this yet, do we, Ms. Binstar? So we just closed the public hearing, and we've got comments by commissioners. Is there a motion regarding this item? Mr. Colling, we could move to approve this, we can move to disapprove this, we could move to table this item pending weed control discussions, pending successful weed control discussions, I guess would be a way of saying it.
Correct.
Would you essentially say that's our three options? Do you see something else?
No, I believe those are your three options.
I think if you're inclined to not act on this tonight, I would do the tabling as opposed to the denying it.
Yeah,
I think
I know that
tabling is a little less harsh.
Yeah, I fully understand, that we need our developments to go through, and I'm not opposing more single or more apartments. That is not the issue, and that's not what I want to stand in front of happening, but I do want to raise the awareness. So I will make the motion to table this till our next meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have the motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Ms. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. It's tabled. And I think with that, whoever Mr. Kessel, you think should handle this. I think we're all hoping for a favorable resolution. You can bring this back 2 weeks from now, and with favorable resolution, I think we'd all be happy to vote for it.
Excellent. I'll make sure we do that.
Okay, we're fine. We're done with the timetable agenda. I think we move back to engineering. We weren't finished with the right-of-way ordinance. I think we were close. I forget just where we were. If anybody remembers, go ahead and start.
I think we moved to approve the right-of-way ordinance. I think we were right there.
I think we were close, but there was still some discussion going on. Bill, Mr. Watson, do you remember where we were at?
I do.
Okay.
It's a good thing for the city.
I think one of the well, if you'd have just said that right away, we wouldn't have had one of the, I think, things that a couple of the commissioners were getting at was, we're all getting calls on building permits, and we know they're taking quite a while. When we get to the right-of-way permits, are we going to have a similar issue?
No, sir. And I am not sure if the commission knows exactly what's going on now with the building permits. Right now, we're having an issue, issuing excavation permits, because the excavation permits that we issue cover excavation outside the right-of-way as well as inside the right-of-way. So that one excavation permit gives permission for contractors to basically dig in and out of the right-of-way whenever they want. And so we're having a tough time deciding, keeping track of who's in the right-of-way and what they're doing. And so, this process is really, as I indicated before, part of this process separates the construction outside the right-of-way with that process inside the right-of-way. So we're intending not to inordinately add more delay time in the construction process. However, it's very important for the city to know who's in the right-of-way and what they're doing, and for us to be able to put eyes on that construction so we can protect our own infrastructure. So we are proposing that the turnaround time on these on these right-of-way permits not be in excess of 5 business days. That being said, the plans that come in with those right-of-way permit applications have to have already approved plans that come in with that. So what these would be plans that have already gone through the normal development plan review process, and the contractors who are wanting to get in the right-of-way to make those sewer and water taps or to build the street or the sidewalk improvements, any of those improvements within the right-of-way have already essentially been approved by the city staff. So
Excuse me, but the right-of-ways that we're talking about, are they essentially just streets and alleys? Are there other right-of-ways?
well, not that I know of, and that's what
That's really what we're talking about. So typically, when they're building, they're going to build on their lot or their site first, and the tap into the water, sewer, if a sidewalk is being done there, that's going to come later after they've, so that we're not going to add something to getting the actual building permit.
That's correct.
And when they get close to when they need to be tapping in, that's when they should get the right-of-way permit.
That's correct. And the same plays with the sidewalk. When they're ready to put the sidewalk in, they come in for a concrete permit, and they'll be allowed to put curb gutter and sidewalk in.
Yeah. I agree with you that this is a good thing. I think we should be separating the two. My only concern, and I think you've addressed it, is that we don't add another time delay to the whole process.
And we're committed to turning these around as quickly as possible, especially on those plans that have already been approved by the city and through the regular development and review process. The only hitch to this is when maybe a private homeowner comes in and wants to get in the right of way to accomplish something, and those plans have not been reviewed. There may be, and there will be an additional time involved for us to all have a look at those plans to see what they're doing, to see if the city is going to approve that construction in our right-of-way.
Okay.
President Johnson?
Yes.
If I may too, some of the right-of-way permits aren't associated at all with the building permits. In other words, there's utility, gas, electric, and other communication utilities that are in the right-of-way now that are not in any way associated with a building permit, and a lot of that we do not know what's going on in those right-of-ways. So this will give us a better idea of, it's separate from the buildings. It would be the utilities and other people in the streets.
So this would affect utility companies too as they go in to upgrade fiber optics or anything like that, and that's where we have kind of a loose handle on where are you at today and what are you installing.
And there's franchise agreements like we've done with MDU and Rough Rider, but I deal with issues that there's holes in the ground or this, and we don't know that those utilities had been there, and so it's difficult to to know who's cutting the streets. And it's totally separate from anything with the building code.
So now, will the utility companies also be subject to the $250 charge each time they're?
They will not.
Okay.
There is a fee waiving. I believe we can waive the fee if necessary. For instance, if maybe someone is just putting in a sidewalk panel in front of their house. Well, they can get the project done for $250. We probably would waive the fee for something like that. And I think that we're bound by code. If I'm not sure, Mr. Cohen, you can help me out on this, because I don't think we would be able to charge the fee on our franchise agreements.
But they'll still need to get the approval before.
Approval and notification.
Well,
for each.
And not a. I'm sorry.
Before each installation, or even if it's on an existing property that they're just upgrading services to, they need to go through this process in order to do that.
Anytime anyone's in our right-of-way, we need to know about it, even if it's MUD or Rough Rider or anything,
Or
because
consolidated, so how do you work with that currently? How are they notifying you presently that we're about ready to upgrade over here, do this, do that, even if it's on existing neighborhoods that have been established for years?
they're not.
I think the only way you would know is if they're required to call the
The one call.
One call.
And that's about the only way you would know that they're in the right of way.
Well, additionally, these folks that have the franchise agreements with it will also have to necessarily be putting a deposit down, because we are going to require that our construction inspection team go out and inspect their construction. So they're not going to be any different than any other contractor in our right-of-way.
Okay, and I understand that, but that is going to open up a big can of worms for how things have historically been done. That is going to be a big transition for somebody like, I'm not speaking for them or on their behalf, but somebody like Consolidated or anybody that's come in to upgrade in older neighborhoods existing infrastructure, and that's going to be a challenge, I think. Not eventually, but just in the transition to having our service providers in this area be aware that they're now contract status as far as coming in and upgrading and updating. Or am I thinking differently? I don't know.
I don't think this is really any different than if, we're all own our own property in the community. You would want notification, prior notification from anyone that came in to dig a trench across your property.
It just happened on my property. I live on a pretty busy street, and they were
Yeah.
just in to upgrade things. And
And I mean, even if they have the right to do it, you would like notification that they're going to be there in case you might have little kids, you might have been planning an outing, what have you, you know. So I think this makes sense. I suspect, you know, for decades, Dickinson didn't have a lot going on. So it probably worked pretty well because there was informal communications. The city just kind of knew when
where the
something was.
cable crew was.
Yeah, I mean, because you learned it at coffee, somebody gave you a phone call, you know, however it worked. But when you're in the kind of construction mode that we're in and what you're trying to manage today, the informal communications breaks down. And you have to replace that with a more formalized system. I think this is a good thing, as the city engineer said. Will it take some getting used to? We likely change our process on the 100th day versus the first day we start? Probably. But I think this is better than just allowing our contractors and utility companies to go do this kind of anytime they please, you know.
Right.
So, and you got the 3 letters correct. It's MDU, not MUD.
Oh.
I think it would probably make a difference to them.
I must apologize to MDU. I'm sorry. I think.
You got the 3 letters correct, but just the order. Okay, where are we?
Vote or not?
Are we ready to vote on the first reading? I know from the previous discussion, and Commissioner Steiner raised a very valid point, you know, you want to make sure that the parties that this is most likely to impact are informed, so that if they have a chance to be here at the next meeting and express their opinions or express them to you in between the meetings. Did we get a motion on the, okay, so we'd be looking for a motion to either approve or disapprove first reading of ordinance 1514.
I'll make that motion. First reading ordinance 1514.
To approve?
To approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have the motion second. Further discussion now. Hearing none, then we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And then, Mr. Engineer, do you have some reports on the projects that you want to give us?
Thank you, Mr. President. Commission, yes, I do. The Empire Road realignment has been successful with the hospital. They've agreed to align with the roadway coming out across the street. So we have negotiated an alignment there, and we are proceeding to work on a task order for the design of the Empire Road through that that's going to be adjacent to the hospital there. So that'll be moving forward quickly. I'm not sure if that'll be under construction this summer yet, or whether it'll be necessarily be delayed until next summer. It just depends on the design time. The West Water Tank near the Pinecrest, we have come to a solution with the Meyer Group, and we know the location of the water tank, so we will be working that out in the development agreement with the Pinecrest folks. The railroad grade separation down on State Avenue, there will be a management presentation made by some of the DOT staff and the design consultant that will be made to the folks at the DOT, and that will be broadcast out at our local Dickinson district in the training room downstairs. Then that will be available to the commission, and Mr. Kessel and I'll be there as well. So any of you that want to attend that, I don't have the time, but that will be made on July 22nd.
If you make that available to the commission, that has to be a public meeting. At this stage, since it's mainly probably a lot of brainstorming still going on, do you want to do that?
We can certainly advertise it as a public meeting, and if enough of you show up that it qualifies, we're safe. But if you don't, we're safe as well.
Well, I'm just wondering, you know, that what they'll present there, I mean, if they were getting close to a, you know, a final recommendation, or we got two alternatives type thing.
I really don't think that the DOT intended this as a public meeting, so that perhaps less than a quorum from the commission would be appropriate.
I would suggest that, you know, that we ask Commissioner Jackson to represent us at that meeting, being an engineer, and you know, you get to, once you're to a point where you think you have the, you know, the plan, I think we all want to see it. But
I think what the agenda is going to be is, I think that all the alternatives are going to be shown at that meeting, and they're asking for some kind of consensus on which of those alignments would be appropriate in the city. Following that, I was going to give a presentation at the following commission meeting, but as I understand, the August 5th commission is going to be rather busy, so that would not be appropriate. I have asked DOT to delay the public meeting portion of the railroad project. Would be, they would like to have that a couple of weeks after that management presentation on July 2nd, so they're really looking for to have the actual public involvement meeting here in Dickinson, either the first or second week in August, which would not allow me to give a presentation here at commission. So I think that's some things that I need to talk to Mr. Kessel about, and we'll work that out. And I just received an email from the DOT that they're kind of not wanting us to delay that 2 more weeks to allow that presentation to commission, but as I indicated, I'll work that out with Mr. Kessel.
okay. And I think for the DOT meeting, we'll just ask that Mr. Jackson represent us if he's available.
Okay. The interim bypass, the reliever route, the bids that were received last Friday, and the DOT is analyzing the bids. I've negotiated an access point to the Pinecrest development that was omitted without our knowledge, and we're having a meeting actually with DOT's coming here from Bismarck with the design consultant on Wednesday morning, so we're going to have hands on that. It'll be handled as a change order to the construction, so time is of the essence on this negotiation. So Wednesday morning we'll be talking with DOT and the design team. The interchange at exit 56 will be in November. I think I've reported down that earlier. Stormwater drainage study, we're going to have a kickoff meeting on July 17th. The LIDAR has been flown for that project and for other projects in town. That is being processed and should be available around the middle of July. The 12th Street West project from Highway 22 to 13th Street, notice to proceed has been given. The construction was supposed to have started today. The traffic signal on Highway 22 will be revised so that it'll incorporate what we call split phase timing, so that the east side will go first and then the west side will go, so that there'll be because we'll be constructing half of the street at a time, so we'll have to modify this signal phasing so that works better. Again, our share is about $900,000 for that. The 10th Avenue West project from 29th Street to 40th Street, we're finalizing the design. We've got all the right-of-way cleared. The bid schedule is in November. Again, our share is about $1.2 million. The Highway 22 landscaping project, we have preliminary design, and that's under review. The PS&E plan is set to be reviewed on August 23rd with a bid opening date of November 15th. Obviously, that will probably be next summer construction. Construction management team, we've been talking about that most of the night here. we're working on a contract with that, and I'm hoping to bring that to commission next time. The railroad quiet zone, I solicited proposals from several consultants to respond with proposals to bring forth a quiet zone assessment of all the railroad crossings here in Dickinson, and those are due next Monday on July 8th. The water reclamation facility influent pump station is preparing plans. Those plans are ready to go out to bid. We finalized the process of getting the property for that facility to go on out on Livestock Road. The appraisal's done, and so I believe the bid process will be that we're going out to bid next week on those. So, and that project is 9.6 million. And that's an intricate part of the water reclamation facility. Actually, that facility cannot operate without that project. So, we're anxious to get that going. Some of the upcoming bids, I'll just remind you of the 18-inch tie between the existing tank and the 30th Avenue alignment out towards the new Pinecrest, and the Westridge 1 facility will be going out to bid on July 15th. Estimated construction cost is $900,000. The 40th Street undergrounds is currently under construction, and that will be funded using private monies. It's estimated to be around $550,000. 21st Street water line is going to go in between the Timbers subdivision and State Street. That construction is estimated to be half a million. The finished water tank, we have a $4.5 million share of that, and that bid will be going out in December. And the West Lift Station and Force Main, that'll go between the intersection of the West Business Loop and Villard down over and connect to the influent pump station. That will be going out to bid in August, and that price tag is about $11.5 million. And everything is going to be done in October of 14, all at once. The last thing I have for you tonight is that I keep getting these letters from the DOT requesting that we return our process for the development of the statewide transportation improvement plan, the STIP, and apparently there is about $242.5 million to be used in 2014. We desperately need to change our application in order to get it back to these folks so that we can tell them what we really want to build in 2014. So Mr. Kessel and I will be working on that in the near future, among everything else, to see if we can't get something back to them to capture some of those funds. If you have any ideas, please respond to one of us so that we'll get those ideas incorporated.
Do a good job.
Thank you.
Ask for lots.
Yeah. It would be helpful to me what you just gave us verbally, if that full report can be incorporated into the minutes, you know, so rather than just saying, the engineer reported on various projects, if you could just take his notes and actually place those in the minutes, maybe as an exhibit, but you have a lot of good information and you can talk faster than I can write. So. Any comments or questions for the engineer? All right. There are no reports from Public Works or Community Development. Are there any reports by individual commissioners or comments that you want to make?
Just a question. Have we heard anything about the West River Community Center? I don't see any action up there.
Commissioner Dukart, they did take bids. They did not receive, they had several bid areas. They did not receive bids in all areas. There was 3 of them that I think went unbid, 3 that also were extremely high compared to what they were expecting. So they're negotiating with those folks that they did receive bids on that were high, and then they're looking to repackage some of those that they did not receive any bids on. I don't have a more formal date yet on when that, the expectation would be that they'd rebid those, but I don't know when that will take place.
Okay, the public has just been asking, and I was wondering myself. The other thing I want to add with Commissioner Oltman's, I was at First Avenue East, and I did call Tom. I don't know if he followed up on it yet today. I just left a message with him, our enforcement officer. Directly south of Saks Motor, and right on the west side of First Avenue East is the weeds, and the sweet clover is about 4 feet high. And I think it's the group that bought the property that was going to do that R3 development there. I'm not sure, but I did leave a message for Tom to follow up on that and send him a letter, do something, because it's a big area, and I'm surprised that Saks Motor or some of the players and those people haven't complained about it yet, or maybe they have, I don't know. But we have new families moving in, and it's embarrassing to me, as a realtor, as well as a city commissioner, to look at that property and wonder why it's not being taken care of. That's it.
Any other reports, comments? Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to address the commission? If so, now's the time. You can step to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public, so the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion, the second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries. We're adjourned.